So you see this contraption here. This is actually my mother had this. My mother and father had this. It's actually been folded down, but it was a very old washing basket holder that was on wheels. And I don't know if you have ever lost somebody close to you, or particularly your parent or parents, and you've grown up with something that they've had for well, in my case, they've had this for 60 years. And I mean, look at the state of it. But and my partner managed to sort of get it to fold in because it was kind of rusted. But it's things like this that sort of I want to take with us. I know that sounds bizarre, but it's like it kind of it's funny, these objects, they sort of mean things in a way, and they resonate. And I'm taking all sorts of odd little things back. Not many, but just sort of a number of things that other people might think, what on earth, why on earth would you want to take that? But they're just things that remind me of my parents, my mother. I mean, must have been like literally thousands of washes taken out on this particular washing basket holder. And I'll probably, sort of derust it and then paint it, and and then we'll use it. And it'll probably end up outlasting me. That's the amazing thing about it. Because if it's held together this long, it's probably, with the same old wheels, they're just these old wheels, it's probably going to outlast me as well. So that's it's funny. And there's some other things too, like this. This is actually fairly attractive, but it's it's probably something they got when they went to Asia, and it's there's a set of them. Not all of them are left, but they're sort of kind of beautiful in a way. That's probably, people could probably understand why I would want to take that away with me, but there are other little things that I won't show you, but it's just funny. And I mean, when I see my mother's purse, I see my mother's purse that has all the cards in it that are no longer useful. It's hard to sort of it's hard to see things like that, your mother's purse and all these little things that people might think are ticky-tacky, that she has, because she loves kind of little sweet things, different little animals in ornament form, and, sort of not always made out of anything particularly special, and sometimes even just plastic things, little plastic fruit with faces on it and stuff. It's funny, isn't it, how people, she's from an much older generation, and I just thought I'd share that with you. Mum had a bit of a sense of humour. My relatives, by the way, are going to sort of clear out the rest of the house, because it's not possible really, time-wise or anything else, for us to do that. But my mother had a sense of humour as well. This little sign, and kind of a few signs like that. A sense of humour. Here's another one over here. But one day, sadly, this whole place, it's very old, really, this place, it's going to be knocked down, basically. The minute we sell it, they're going to knock it down, because it's become very old. And also, they've been, basically, the real estate developers around here have been chomping at the bit to buy. They've been approaching my mother for I don't know how long, to sell this house, and so they can knock it down and put up 4 kind of units, and then sell them each at $500,000 each or something. And they've knocked down all this in the front here. They've knocked down all these different houses, sort of waiting basically to kind of put up just a whole bunch of 2-story units, like a sort of Gold Coast apartment units and stuff. I'll just sort of show you. There used to be houses here in the front, and there was a beautiful old mango tree. And it's sad. I have to say, I really loathe the Gold Coast. It's like capitalism gone insane. It's just a consumer nightmare, and it's just constantly sort of pushing people to buy stuff, and and buy property. property and buy up old places and then knock them down. And anyway, let me just sort of show you this swathe of land before you get to the canal. And there's a canal over there. Let's just have a look. This is probably not the greatest. And when you're upstairs, but you can see the canal through the trees there. You can see the canal and see all of this allotment here. It had houses on it, but basically now from upstairs you can see across the canal, and but there's the water there. You can see it very clearly. Whereas when this house was purchased in 1973, it was difficult to see the canal from here. And my childhood home was sort of, I went to visit it a few years ago. It was in Baden and Brisbane, and it just been kind of renovated so much that it was an old Queenslander. It was renovated so much you couldn't even recognize it anymore. That was really sad. And I actually, the owner actually invited me in to have a look, and there was only one room that was intact, and that was my sister's bedroom, and my sister died in 1978. She was 19, and that was the only room intact, which is really odd and interesting and kind of sad. But my mother had a lovely old kitchen with lots of very interesting cupboards, and it had this sort of almost like those what you would find in Brooklyn, in those diners with this sort of chairs attached to the wall with the table attached to the wall, that kind of thing. It was interesting, and it had a sort of a slopey kind of there were sort of slopey wooden chairs that we used to have breakfast on. And anyway, all of that was gone. And it's funny how people don't seem to value old things much anymore, because it was a really interesting looking kitchen, and you can't really buy stuff like that anymore. You can't even sort of it costs a fortune to replicate that sort of thing too. I know that probably sounds like a weird description, like a Brooklyn diner, but it's probably not the best description. But anyway, it was a very interesting kitchen. So these things, and the next door neighbor had this amazing house, which was a huge Queenslander house, sort of with sweeping kind of, it was all wooden, sweeping sort of decks, and just beautiful. But it was very kind of humble at the same time. And now they knocked it down, and then they knocked down a 100-year-old. Because they knocked it down when she died. Her son sold it, and then they just knocked it down and put up all these kind of, apartment blocks, and sort of, and she had a 100-year-old macadamia nut tree, 100 years old, that we used to get macadamia nuts from, and she had mango trees, and she had pawpaw trees. They just all knocked them all down, and that's capitalism, where it's sort of all about, and of course it's population increase too, but I mean, there's just no value for anything that is getting in the way of profit. Is seen as just either disposable or something that they can make money from, and that I find is incredibly sad. And capitalism is a sort of a cancer. It's a disease, and and we're all caught up in that disease, and that's why it has to end. Capitalism has to end. It's either ends or it's going to end us. And unfortunately, I've talked about this before, but I mean, it's ecocidal, and it's taking us to the brink of extinction and probably beyond in this century. But I see it all around me. This is I see it as decay. What is happening? The attitude is sort of it becomes like a spiritual death. Capitalism is bound up with a kind of spiritual death, and the yard is sort of overgrown. And I know, for those of you who are, this is Mum's old pergola. That's what it's called? I think a pergola, which she used to sit in, and with my father, and I think we'll probably be leaving, hopefully in the next. We're kind of a little stuck here at the moment because we have to. See, there's the canal from here. We're a bit stuck here until, it's probably a bit windy actually. I don't know what this is here. Somebody's got a trailer parked here. Anyway, things are quite overgrown. There's some old fountain. It's interesting, sort of when somebody has died, and my mother lived for 104 years, and so spirit was willing, but the body just kind of said, no, that's enough. That's enough. And also you can't, like, she was not drinking very much, and that seemed to be very difficult for her, and that seemed to be a real problem for her, drinking for some reason. And of course that put stress on the kidneys, and of course she ended up eventually dying of acute renal failure. That was really what got her. But her spirit was willing, and but her body said, no, that's enough. And I'm going to talk about my experience with Mum in her final days, because there are some things that I want to share with people for your information, for your own life, at end of life kind of things, and also if your parents are getting older and stuff, and also just generally, because as you know, up until recently, there's probably only been there's an very occasional video where I talk about myself, because there's a group of you on this channel who we've become close in some ways, as close as one can be, online. But of course, there are things that people on my channel know about me that I could definitely say none of my extended family know about me. That's because and that's for another story. You've heard the video that I did about my brother dying at the end of last year, and that relationship with him, and that sort of, unfortunately, that relationship with him, sort of his attitude towards me seemed to transfer to his children. So that was really unfortunate, and unfortunately it even became apparent when I was up here, even across the bed of my dying mother. One of his children caused a problem with me and was actually incredibly inappropriate and rude. I mean, you don't need that when your mother is dying and only has literally the day that she dies, somebody is hassling you and saying things like, you don't care about your own mother. Literally, that's what they said to me. I mean, it was insane, really. But this is part of it. This is the sort of thing we had to put up with coming up here, a sort of an adversarial kind of just a few, 2 or 3 adversarial family members. So anyway, but that's how it is. It is as it is, and So anyway, my point, just to wrap this up, I'm just sharing this with you as a part of my life. It's a small part of my life, but it's also a part of my life. I mean, my mother obviously wasn't a small part of my life. She was a big part of my life. But I just thought it would be okay. It would be, I think you might find it just to check in with you, basically, because I appreciate you all. And I thank you for all the kindness and the support and love you've shown me. Sadly, you've shown me more kindness in one day than that part of the extended family that I've talked about in that video, which was called, I think it was called Something Has Happened and I'm Very Sad. I think that was the title of the video. So you can check that out if you want any background to that issue. But I've been shown more kindness by people from this channel and some friends online and a few friends offline. Even sort of Abby Martin and Manar have been so kind to me. There's been more kindness shown 24 hours from various people than my entire life from my family. And I'm not including my father or my mother in that, of course, but from my extended family, there's been more kindness shown from the people I've mentioned than my extended family in my entire life. And that's just in one day. In fact, nobody from that family came up to me at the funeral and sort of, or have at any stage said, I'm sorry that your mother died, Tricia. Can't even bring themselves to do that. So that's, and if you want to understand why that animosity has happened, please check out that video, Something Has Happened and I'm Very Sad, which was around late December 2020. So anyway, I'm not here really to air, the dirty linen or whatever, as the saying goes, but, these things affect us, don't they? What happens in families affect us. And and when you find out the sort of history of that particular relationship with my brother, you'll kind of be astonished and then sort of think, what on earth was going on there? So, anyway, I'll just wrap it up here. And for those who are new to my channel, you're probably thinking, what kind of a channel is it? Is it an anti-imperialist, mainly an anti-imperialist channel with vegan content or vegan interspersed throughout it and focusing on it too, and other issues, or is it some sort of personal vlog sort of thing? Well, 95% of it is anti-imperialist and everything else that I've mentioned. You can see the playlists, and this is just a sort of a occasionally I do like a little personal sort of update, because I'm away from my home in Tasmania, and we came up to look after my mother for what we thought might be 2 or 3 months, and sadly 4 days after we arrived here, she died. So it just didn't turn out the way we wanted, and I think I don't know if I said this to you, but when I was in the hospital, and this was I had a little conversation with her. I was the only one there, and this was probably about 24 hours before she died, before she basically went out to it on morphine. She said, when I said to her, look, I'm so sorry, Mum, that we came up to take you home, and she knew that, to take her back to this place to look after her own home. And Mum said, and I said, I'm so sorry, because I don't think we I don't think we can take you back. And I sort of started crying, because I said you're just too ill, you're too ill to go home. And she sort of looked at me with her beautiful piercing blue eyes, and she sort of very weakly said, but in a sort of in a strong way, as my mother could, even like when she's deathly ill, literally, she said, I want to go back home to Runaway Bay. And she looked at me with those lovely blue eyes, and I just looked at her, because I didn't know what to say to her. I didn't know what to say, and we both looked at one another for about half a minute. Seemed like a really long time. And I don't know if she knew by me not saying anything that how that just wasn't going to happen. In fact, not only could I not have taken her home, I mean, literally she was only had 24 hours to live, basically. So it was like, I knew that she probably couldn't have even got home without probably dying on us, sort of thing. And we couldn't have done all the things for her at home that she required. And because, when you find out what it was like right at the end, you will understand how important it was for us to be there at the time when she literally died, and what we needed to do to assist her, which we couldn't have done at home. Mind you, if we had been at home, I probably would have had to have taken her to hospital that evening anyway. But that would have been very uncomfortable for her. And, it wouldn't have been good. So she was in the best place she was in a hospital. I don't know if it was the best hospital, but she was in a hospital, which was what was necessary. But anyway, but I'll say something which probably sounds maybe a bit weird to some people, but it's been almost 2 weeks since she's died now. She died on the 29th of March 2021, and after about 3 to 4 days of her her death, you could really feel the house sort of felt different. It was like, it felt different. Something had changed, and it felt freer. It felt like there was no attachment to anything there, and it just felt like a place where Mary Roberts once lived, and now, her being, or whatever, I don't know what you believe in, I don't know what I really believe in either, but I feel like we're all interconnected, and I include non-human animals in that. We're all part of we're all interconnected, and as Thich Nhat Hanh said, we're here to awaken from our illusion of separateness, and I sort of feel like we're all interconnected, and so I feel like she's just rejoined basically this oneness sort of thing. And so I'm not really separate from her. I never was separate from it. I mean, I was a part of her in many ways because of this sort of basically essence, this oneness. And then now that she's gone, I'm still not separate from her in a way, you know? And that might sound odd to some people, you know, and you're welcome to think that's a load of nonsense. I don't really believe in I don't believe in a God or anything like that. I don't really particularly hold any religious position, but that's something that I sort of feel. That sort of oneness and everything being interconnected is something that I sort of feel. Whether that is a reality or not, I don't know. I mean, we're all just atoms, and all the different, you know, all the different sort of the trees, the non-human animals, human animals. We're all kind of composed of energy, and you know, who knows? That was very sad when I said that to her about coming home, and she sort of said that to me, and I just thought, well, at least she knew that we had come up to bring her home, and I had no idea how ill she was. Like, I mean, when I say ill, when I saw her, she looked like she should have been in palliative care, and no one had really informed me to the extent to which what state she was in. That she was much worse than I realized, which is sort of, but I think even if we'd come up a month prior, I actually don't know if, I don't think we would have been able to bring her home even then. I think she needed to have been in hospital and had something, because, you know, she was really, it was not good, her situation. So anyway, that's just how it is. And but she knew, at least she knew we were coming up to take her home, and I think that made her feel good. And even just a day before she died, she was sort of, she wanted to go home, but then she just sort of drifted off on morphine, and then, you know, and that was the end of the communication. So I was basically the last person that really got to speak with her, and that was because I stayed overnight, all night. I stayed up for almost 48 hours straight without sleep, and because that was what was required at the time. But anyway, that's all I'll say now. I'll talk more. I probably will, but I may or may not, I'm not sure. Talk about this more when I return home, which hopefully will be within the next week. I'm hoping, because we're waiting on, we want to move some things down to Tasmania, like a pianola that my mother gave me in her will, which requires a moving truck, and we'll throw a few other things on there as well. And we're trying to get a notification of when they can come and pick it up, because we can't actually leave until we're putting it on backs of trucks, and that could be 2 or 3 days before we find out. And then there's and we bought a used car, a cheap car, because we thought we might be here for 2 or 3 months, and it's better than renting a car and spending, you know, money every day, a lot of money every day just to have it. So we bought this cheap car thinking we were going to be here for 2 or 3 months, and then boom. So we're going to end up putting that on the back of the truck, which is expensive, and getting that sent to Tasmania, because we can't really sell it really in a timely fashion. And so we basically have to have those two things concurrently happening, and then we can fly out and fly back to Tasmania. So anyway, that's the short of it, and thank you so much for watching. Thank you for your support and kindness. My name's Trish Roberts. You're watching Faint Signals from Vega. Till next we speak, bye for now.